Greeting Wellness Inspiration Blog community. This is your wellness coach, Tyra Hargrove, here to share a word of inspiration with you on your path to a greater level of health, wellness in your body, mind, and spirit. So, here lately, I've been watching videos about people who are saying that they're no longer vegan, vegetarian. And so I wanted to make this post because these videos have really been speaking to me. So I'm trying to get my camera just right. Wish I had put it right there. This is for my Shakeology right here. So what happened is I wasn't even looking for this. I haven't been a vegetarian. Let me see here. My younger son is 15. So since 2002, I gave it up. So, I don't need it. And it was just, I could not sustain it. I just absolutely could not sustain being a vegan or vegetarian. And so it just felt like after my first pregnancy, which I was a vegetarian during that time, was a vegetarian afterwards for about 2 years, for a total of 8 years. And when I conceived my second, well, first of all, I was a horrible vegetarian. Prior to that, I was a pretty good vegetarian. I did my best. I was a vegetarian because I wanted to be healthy. And so I did my best to eat, real food, all that kind of good stuff. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't remember much of anything anymore because it's been so long. But, it was always this delicate balance. And I will say things that I remember that probably easily pushed me away from it once I became pregnant was it was like, it's just the same old, because you just can't eat too much soy. That was something I had learned, and I didn't want to be eating a lot of processed vegetarian, vegan type food. I was vegetarian, never opposed to eating dairy and eggs, although I really did buy into the notion that, we shouldn't be, cow's milk was made for baby cows, and, it's bad to eat eggs. Okay, so part of what got me into being a vegetarian is I found this book by Queen Afua, who I respect. So if anybody watches this and is into Queen Afua, this is no disrespect. I look at her on Instagram. I respect the work that she does and how she has helped people. She helped me. So please do not turn this into me bashing her or anything. But her work is some of the first that I looked at that made me convinced I've got to go become a vegetarian because she talked about how it could help women with their menstrual cycle. And so I was like, my cycle is horrible. And she talked about how if we were into veganism, really is her big thing. You just get so clear in your body that you don't bleed as much. And I don't know, I just knew there was something that was in what she was saying for me. And I even remember when I first left home and went off to college at Spelman College, there were the Nation of Islam gentlemen in particular. I saw the men more than the women. And they would talk about how we shouldn't eat pork. Pork isn't for black folk. Pork is bad for people. I didn't really like pork, so that was an easy let go for me. And then that was when I was 19. When I was 20, maybe, yeah, when I was 20, I stopped eating beef. And that was after I just started learning more about how unhealthy the meat is. Although I'm not opposed to eating meat, I am opposed to how meat is sold for the express purpose of making money, not to provide food for people. And so people will do anything to these animals. They'll do anything to this meat. And you just hear about you hear about what they add, coloring, all this bull crap. So I was like, I'm giving up beef. Giving up beef and pork, I lost 5 pounds both times. Just dropped 5 pounds like that. So that was proof to me that pork and beef, I didn't eat them. I didn't even really like them. And so then, I started getting into a queen of food and everything, and slowly but surely started really getting sold on being a vegetarian. And once you go into this vegetarian vegan world, it takes you into a whole new world. You're hanging out with new people, and it's cool. So, and it really did lead me to being more aware. That's something that I really loved about getting into that aspect of the journey. And so Queen of Food was the one that really sold me on it. And, there is this spiritual aspect for those of us of African descent in particular. When we find some of the big proponents of vegetarianism, it's a way to connect us to our culture. Though, as we begin to really study, Africans ain't known to be vegetarians. Especially if we're going back to ancient days. Folks ate what, they cultivated crops, yes, and they ate meat. I mean, it's not like African people of African descent are vegetarian. It's just not, they're not known for that. But, when you're in the process of learning, and those of us here in America, we have these teachers here. It's so profound. We have been so lost. And when we actually apply a lot of what they're sharing with us, it works, The thing that I've had to come to learn is that ultimately I am the wisdom of my body. And this is what they teach us. These teachers that a lot of us love and cherish, we've got to tap into the wisdom of our bodies. We can't just eat what the world says eat because, we may do that some when we're children, but at some point we've got to make our own decisions about what's best for our health. And another thing is, and I think other folks too are this way, you just start questioning a lot about society. And so it's like for people like me of African descent who understands the oppressive nature of the United States, especially against African Americans, it makes me question, okay, am I really eating this way because, this is a way to be controlled and all that kind of good stuff. Yes, I buy into some conspiracy theories and I test them, I check them out. And so it was just easy. It's easy for some of us. And I'm one of those to just say, you know what? I'm not going to eat the way that the culture says that I should eat. I'm trying to get free. I'm trying to know who I am, all that kind of good stuff. So it also led me into natural ways of healing. I mean, vegetarian and veganism is awesome. I have friends that gave me books, Dean Ornish, and there was another one by the Diamonds, Eat to Live or something like that. I'm going to get rid of all these books, actually, because I'm not using them. Just all these big proponents of, eating a certain way. Then, you start getting into Reiki and crystals and just all this stuff. It's like a whole new world. So I start getting into it and I become one of those type of people who were like sold. It's better for the environment. They talk about how our teeth aren't designed to eat meat. So we should all be vegetarians. I'm telling everybody in my life, we should all be vegetarians. And I'm not a flesh eater. And it was early in my marriage. I'm pretty sure I became a vegetarian when I was 24, and that's when I got married. And my husband is like me, he's very much about health. So he was already off the pork and beef. So we were there together, and he was like, "Girl, you want to do vegetarian, veganism, do it." But he would check me. He didn't say it this way, but essentially he was sort of like, "You're a jackass, you really are offensive." And I'm like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah, the way you talk about being a vegetarian to people, you make people feel bad for eating meat." And I'm like, "Really?" And so I always struggled with the fact that I wasn't like the best vegan because I wasn't vegan all the time. And so I would eat some dairy and some eggs, felt completely and totally guilty about it. And I will say that I really cannot eat a lot of dairy because when I do, I always get mucus. That was one of the things they talk about. If you have a lot of mucus, it's a reflection of what's in your diet. So I'm telling you, I've always checked and tested this stuff, right? So the dairy was easy for me to give up, but I wasn't actually a thin vegetarian until I started taking African dance classes. And I was just so active. I was dancing all the time. I was passionate about it, and I was eating really, really well. And then I got pregnant, and so now, hindsight 2020, I sort of wonder if I gained a lot of weight because I was a vegetarian, eating lots of carbs. Excuse me, I just drank something with carbonation. Um, Lots of carbs, just eating a lot. Let's see here. I was like man, I can't remember. I think I got down to like 145. No question, I was like in my 150s. I can weigh 150 and look amazing, like a size 10 or whatever. And, but I got up to like 210. Yeah. I was probably 150 something and got up to 210. And, you know, it took me forever to get the weight off. But, you know, I was still in my early 30s. I was 30 when I had my first son. And I was able to get the weight off, even being a vegetarian. It was slow in coming. All these people that lose all this weight after they have a baby, that has never freaking happened to me. But I will say that motherhood caused me to be a horrible vegetarian. There was nothing healthy about what I was doing. I was in complete survival mode at that point. The type of mom who just sort of felt lonely. My mother had passed 3 years prior to the birth of my first child. So I was grieving not having my mom here, even though my mother-in-law was like, that's my second mama. Um, it was just still hard though. And my first child came out the womb driven. This kid has so much energy and it's an adjustment to the marriage. So I did not care what I ate for the most part. It was just about let me eat, and at that time I was a big time emotional eater. Um, and so, you know, it was about comfort and all that kind of good stuff. So then I started hanging out with a whole new group of vegetarians because I was living in a different place. And that was when I actually met Dr. Africa. There was somebody who had connections to a lot of these teachers. And Dr. Africa would come and teach, and just a really cool guy, lots of fun, but he's hardcore veganism. And when you hang out with people who are big time vegan, the vegetarian not so much. We're like not. We ain't serious enough. We're serious because we're proud. You know, vegetarians is like, oh, I'm so proud to be vegetarian. Vegan, that's a whole new level right there. That's a whole new level. So it's always like this low level guilt that I always have because I knew, first of all, at that point, I wasn't even a healthy vegetarian. I always sort of leaned towards veganism. Like I could eat a meal and there was no animal products in that meal. But, you know, even vegans are like, they won't use honey. Hardcore vegans, I don't know if I ever was like that, okay? But very, very close. And I still felt guilty for not doing it right. No semblance of health. So, yeah. And I always had the low level guilt. That's something I think is very important. Um, and so then I get pregnant with my second son, and I just thought to myself, screw it, I'm done. I mean, I was on a trip And it was long. I wasn't driving, and I had ordered a fish sandwich for my first son. He would not eat that fish sandwich. I was so hungry. It was a trip from Tennessee to New York. I was so hungry. I ate that fish sandwich and I felt so good. Never looked back. After I had my second son, I thought, okay, it's time for me to become. Hold 1 second. Kamau, turn off the stove. Thank you. I think I left a pot boil. Oh Lord, I smell like something's burning. Did you put more water in the pot? Did you put more water in the pot? Will you do that? Thank you. Sorry. Um, so, second son, I decided I needed to become a vegetarian again. I was like, okay, it's time to become a vegetarian again. And I said, I'm going to do that right after I eat this turkey sandwich. I ate that turkey sandwich. I said, no, I'm not going to become a vegetarian again. I'm done. It's over. Never looked back on it. You know, thank goodness I was a vegetarian before social media, YouTube, all that kind of good stuff. I really wasn't hanging out with hardcore vegans, vegetarians. It was everyone just sort of did what they wanted to do, thankfully. So I didn't lose friends or community, nothing like that over it, thankfully. And then something I had noticed, and it may have been before I decided I'm done with vegetarian and veganism, that my older son, who was a vegetarian the first 2 years probably of his life, he always had a nosebleed every day of his life. Nosebleed after he started eating food, not as an infant. You know, especially once he wasn't on breast milk as much. And I would leave him at my mother-in-law's house sometimes for him to, for him to stay there while I went to run an errand. And she would sneak him meat. And I figured it out. And I said, I tell you what, just give him chicken or poultry and seafood, no pork or beef to end this thing. Plus he wanted it. And his nosebleed went away. That was when I really and truly started feeling like, you know what? Everybody ain't meant to be a vegetarian. This kid had a nosebleed a lot. As soon as he started, it was immediate. No nosebleed. That's when I started saying, okay, everyone's not meant to be a vegetarian. And I never even attempted to make my second son a vegetarian, though I noticed he could actually sort of be a vegetarian naturally. He would go without eating meat, and I wouldn't make him eat it, nothing. You know, I don't make my kids eat anything. And he would go too long without meat, and I noticed he had a nosebleed. And then I would tell him, go eat some chicken or whatever, and he would eat it, nosebleed gone. So that's when I started realizing people's health is negatively impacted by vegetarianism and veganism in particular. Okay, so that's my journey. That was 8 years of my life. I was a vegetarian, not to me a super long time, but long enough to, like I said, when I was pregnant with my younger son is when I decided I'm no longer a vegetarian. It is 16 years later, 17 years later, and people still think I'm a vegetarian. That's how hardcore I was into it. I'm like, what the frick? Why do people think I'm a vegetarian? Stop it. I'm not. So fast forward to a few weeks ago, I started watching these ex-vegan videos. And I don't even know why I did this, other than there's like a shift, a change that's happening in my spirit. And I'm fascinated because I remember things that started happening to me. I'm going to go back because at first I was like, I don't even know where to go from here, but thinking about this, I'll go back a little bit. So I stopped being a vegetarian, stopped being a vegan, and I walked around with guilt and shame, like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible. I can't go back to it. And then I look at all the vegetarians and vegans out there, and I'm like, I really want to do that, but I just can't. Well, there were some times that I went through in my life where I was really delving into my spirituality, and I would go back into being a vegetarian. And one time, this is after me giving up vegetarianism, I think. Yeah, but it wasn't long after I gave up vegetarianism. I mean, so it was right within that same window. Because it was after my second son was born. I was a raw foodist for a little while. Now, to me, raw foodism was way more healthy for my body than vegetarianism, because with the vegetarianism, I was doing way too many carbs and grains and stuff like that. And so, yeah, but raw foods does not work if there's only one person in the house doing it, and the person who prepares the food is the raw foodist and has to cook food for everybody else. It was just like a whole nother existence. I did not even feel like I felt like I was a subculture or something. It's very difficult to explain. You go someplace and you want to eat, but the offerings are so limiting as to what you can eat, because you're eating raw foods and it's not all the time fulfilling. Another thing, as I listen to these raw food, these ex-vegan videos, a lot of these people have done raw veganism, is how cold you stay. And that was another thing I didn't like about being a raw foodist. In the summer, it was so perfect. But in the wintertime, I was miserable. Literally, I could not get warm. I stayed cold all the time. So I was like, hey, once my kids leave home, maybe I'll go back into raw foodism, because I can be so self-absorbed and do that. So then I started noticing my issues with weight became very, very challenging. It was very, very difficult for me to lose weight. And I just remember being hungry all the time. This is as somebody who eats meat, but still, I still would eat vegetarian meals at times. But, you know, it was always sort of like me flirting with vegetarian. I've said I wasn't going to be a vegetarian, but I still believed that was the supreme diet, the ultimate diet, the ultimate style of eating. Veganism was even better. Raw foodism is like the queen of all eating styles and or lifestyles. I call it diet styles now, because whatever. I guess they could be lifestyles. But anywho, I always had that in my mind. And so I was always striving to make sure that I kept elements of it in my life. And I just started noticing something wasn't right with my health. And I was just struggling with losing weight. One of my friends was like, girl, you need to eat protein with the carb. And that was like pivotal for me. It made me begin to realize, wait a minute, maybe there is something about too many carbs or whatever. This has been a very long, slow process for me to realize that though people tell us on the outside what is good for us, if we don't listen to our bodies, then we're going to get in trouble. There is no supreme diet other than the one that your body says you should eat. That's what I have learned from all of this. And once I started backing up from the carbs a little bit, because, you know, the vegans and vegetarians, they say, oh, you don't need a lot of protein. Anything you need, you can get from a plant-based source. Well, I started eating fewer of that, less of that, or at least trying to combine the two, protein with the carb, you know, a meat, animal-based protein with the carb. And then I started realizing, wait a minute, I'm more satisfied. Everything feels better. Now, I will say, what exacerbated my issues with realizing this vegetarian thing, this too many carbs things, this plant-based thing, it doesn't fully work for me, is too much sugar. I ate way more sugar than I should. And that for me is the biggest problem with eating a plant-based diet, because it requires me to eat a lot of carbs mixed with other carbs to make this protein complete. And it was starting to wreak havoc on my body, but I did not realize this. It's not until I started watching these ex-vegan videos and a few other things that I'm like, oh my God. Vegetarian and veganism is not for me. Another thing is Eat Right for Your Blood Type. I was looking at that book and one of my friends gave it to me and I was like, I'm an O. It says O's are supposed to eat meat. We're not supposed to eat a lot of carbs. We should just eat meat, animal products, almost no fruit, and let's see here, no fruit, and yeah, no breads, no grains. It was really and truly challenging for me to accept me, the vegetarianism is supposed to, the vegetarian is supposed to be eating, um, I'm supposed to be eating meat. It's like, what? So the more I introduced animal products into my diet and took away the carbs, I always noticed I felt better. So that was another thing that was very pivotal, Eat Right for Your Blood Type, that was showing me proof that I don't care what these people say about eating vegetarian and veganism, you know, vegan diets or whatever. It's not working for me. And so I started turning into an intuitive eater and started telling people, do not listen to what people tell you. You need to test it for yourself. You need to figure out if it's going to work. And if it works, then that's what you need to do, because it's your body's wisdom that is the greatest indicator of what you need to do. If you listen to the wisdom of your body, but if we're constantly listening to people on the outside of us, then we're probably going to end up in trouble. So that's when I started searching for like, what is my way of eating? And one of the first things that I did was, let's see here. My biggest problem was eating way too much refined sugar, like sweets, sugary sweets. It was really and truly messing me up, actually, from hearing my wisdom. So if I have to say I'm like really big on anything, it would be don't eat sugar. I mean, don't even eat a lot of fruit. If you eat sugar, let it be some type of fruit and just don't eat a lot of it. But that's really what slowed me down from really understanding what my body's wisdom was calling me for me to do. And so, and then my weight got out of hand, out of control, largely because of the sugar, and I became pre-diabetic. But I didn't know anything until I started watching Dr. Eric Berg on YouTube. I was desperate. I was exhausted all the time. I was hungry all the time. And I didn't understand. I was like, why is it that I can't just get full and just not overeat, which then was sending my weight sky high. And so I started watching him and just a whole bunch of other things, learning too from this book called Woman Code, that the worst thing I can do is choose a diet. The best thing I can do is understand how my body works and operate according to my freaking hormones. I should eat according to my hormones. And so, as I started trying to figure out adrenal fatigue, I began to realize, so this was another thing that really blew my mind. And this goes more into the intuitive eating piece than it's not so much about vegetarian and veganism, though When I was a vegetarian and a vegan, I never felt satisfied, so I ate all the time. But like how eat 3 meals a day, that's like bad for you, right? Eat 3 meals, 2 snacks. That's like supreme optimal. Got to watch your blood sugar. And then, you know, I will say something I got from probably Queen of Fua or one of those like the Diamonds. I can't think of their book. It was living according to your circadian rhythms, the circadian rhythms. And so don't eat after like 6 or 7 o'clock at night. That's one of the best things I ever learned from long ago. Nowadays, it's called intermittent fasting, right? But back in the day, that was one of the best things I learned during my little vegetarian and vegan time. And so, it's like really understanding the timing of eating. And that was one of the things that so going back to the adrenal fatigue, they say, the fitness people, because I'm way into fitness, say don't eat carbs after a certain time, or whatever they're talking about with these carbs, right? Well, with adrenal fatigue, the doctor I listened to, which is Dr. Christensen, it's like the Adrenal Reset Diet is the book that I read by him. He said you have to do carb cycling, and you have to eat carbs according to the hormones, because cortisol for somebody who has adrenal fatigue is low in the morning, high at night. And that's why people with adrenal fatigue, a lot of times they're sleepy in the morning, but they wake up later in the day. I always was one that was waking up early in the morning with a lot of energy, but would go to bed early. But things had flipped for me some kind of way. And I was up all night long, but I had to get up early because I have family. I have a family I have to take care of. And I had zero energy. I could drink coffee. I could drink all kinds of stuff. And so he said, do not eat carbs in the morning. Eat carbs later in the day, because that matches the melatonin of the body that's getting you ready to go to sleep. Instead, eat more protein in the morning, because that matches with cortisol, which is what you're trying to raise up. And the other thing that I learned from the Woman Code book was, do not drink caffeine on an empty stomach. I had been doing that for years. I wake up, I drink some water, then I drink some source of caffeine. So I stopped drinking. I would wait to eat before I drank caffeine. Immediately I got energy. And then I would only eat like eggs and turkey bacon in the morning. And I would not eat carbs until lunch and dinner. And it felt so weird for me. I was like, no, the experts say if you want to lose weight, you cannot eat carbs late in the day. But at that point, I didn't care about losing weight. All I cared about was getting my energy back, because I'm a very energetic person. I teach dance and fitness classes. And so I was like, I need my energy. So I'll do whatever. And I'd be doggone, it worked. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. I tested it. I tried it out. It worked. Am I that way now? No, because I'm not struggling as much with energy. And so I do my best to eat my carbs earlier in the day, although I really don't eat a lot of carbs anymore. So I took Zumba Plate, or Plate by Zumba. I'm a Zumba instructor, and so I took that course because I was like, I'm so desperate. I need help on nutrition. I'm effed up. And I think those doctors in that course are actually vegetarian. They really push it, like really a plant-based diet is what we need. Plant-based stuff is what we need the most, but there's no hard and fast way to eat. But what I got from that was really and truly what, to me, vegetarianism should be is vegetables. Watching these ex-vegan videos and the amount of sugar these people eat is like, oh my God, I would be like probably a diabetic if I was a fruitarian. Um, but I will say during my vegan and vegetarian years, they talked about plants, the vegetables, they heal us. They really do heal us. And so, that was what I really started working on, eating more vegetables. I became a certified health coach because I thought maybe I need to become a health coach and coach my own self. I need to coach myself. Um, but as a health coach, I have so many opportunities to take classes that help me to learn how to coach people because I was like, I need to really figure this out for myself. I'm dying here. I don't really know. I'm so lost, and I'm a fitness professional, professed, health lover, health and wellness lover, and my life is in shambles at that point. And at that point, I was probably at like 195. That was probably my biggest weight, non-pregnant, recently. I mean, in the last 2 years, about 2 years ago, that's when I was like, oh my God. But a lot of that was related to sugar. So then I found Dr. Eric Berg, and that's when things really started turning around for me. But prior to that, I really had become actually sort of like pissed off when people try to tell people how to eat, even though there was a time I did it. I self-corrected. Don't tell people how to eat. You need to show people how to figure out how to eat. And the best thing we can tell people is you need to test what you do for yourself. And there are things that I've had to do that I really didn't want to do. So I really would love to have been a vegetarian, but it was not it was not working for me. I would have loved to kept eating sugar, but that was killing me. It was showing me you are really and truly headed for diabetes, and you're gonna look crazy because you're supposed to be a health and wellness person. There's a lot of stuff that I've been required to do that I did not really want to do. The latest thing being intermittent fasting. I'm one of those people that says, oh, I love food. I just really love food. And, when you do intermittent fasting, you cannot, you have, once the time that you eat is over, you're done. You're done with eating for the day. Keep it moving, people. It took me a while, but this is what Dr. Eric Berg sold me on. So, first and foremost, Dr. Berg got me off sugar because I was watching his videos before I gave up sugar. And I was like, yeah, I know I need to give up sugar. He talked about using xylitol. It tastes good, erythritol, that tastes good, and it doesn't affect your blood sugar. And he was the one that helped me to understand insulin, which is a hormone. He got me to understand I need to eat based on how insulin affects me. And so I was not sold on it until I had a birthday 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago or was it last year? I can't remember. This is 2019, March 2019. It was either March 2018 or 2017. I've cried so much over my weight, I can't even remember. That somebody bought me a birthday cake. I had told people, do not buy me any sweets. Don't buy me a cake, nothing. And these people bought me a cake. I mean, I'm not acting like I'm not an addict. I ate that cake. I enjoyed every second of that cake. And then I got on the scale one day. This is before I started weighing on a regular basis. And it said 195. That was my rock bottom. That was my rock bottom. I cried like a baby. I could not believe it. And, I even went to my nurse practitioner, like, I'm so desperate to lose weight and I'm having trouble. And she was like, here's a prescription for some pills if you want to take these. And I was like, I cannot take these pills. I don't do well with pharmaceuticals. So, I just remember being crushed. So at that point, I was like, what'd you say, Dr. Berg? You said don't eat any more sugar. I gave that sugar up. I was like, I'm done. And for a little while, I might, slip and fall and realize you can't eat a little bit of sugar. You suck at it. You just can't eat sugar. Got on my erythritol, everything, started feeling great, feeling like I'm getting my life back. And so again, I'm becoming more and more convinced because of the evidence my body is showing me. Not just because Dr. Berg said don't eat sugar. People have been telling me don't eat sugar forever. I tell people don't eat sugar, as I would sneak and go and eat my sugar. But my body showed me no sugar wins you. And then the other thing that Dr. Berg was just really, really talking about, and it's not like I never talked to Dr. Berg before. I'm just watching his videos. But anyway, that he was convincing me of is intermittent fasting. And he started talking about how our body goes into ketosis when we intermittent fast, and it'll help, the body will use its own stored fat, which I had a lot of stored fat at that point, still do. Use its own fat as energy. And let's see here, what else? And it will, it's very healing. If you start watching, there's Dr. Fung, is it? If you watch these videos on intermittent fasting, it does more than just help people lose weight. Like, I don't really just intermittent fast because of my weight. I intermittent fast because, yet again, my body began to show me the benefits of intermittent fasting. So I was struggling with energy. I have so much more energy when I intermittent fast. And initially it was a little bit challenging. I was like super hungry. And I started off my intermittent fasting. Once I got serious, I was like, okay, I can do 12 hours. 12 hours to eat, that's a lot of time to be able to eat. And what the other thing that sold me on it was I saw this man that I know who was doing it. And he said he just started off with 12 hours, and he would stop eating at about 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the evening, and wouldn't eat until about 5:30 the next morning. I was like, oh, I can do that. I can do that. And so that's how I started out, 12 hours. And he had lost so much weight. He looked like he was 10 years younger. And he said that's all he did, intermittent fast. And I decided that I wasn't the kind of intermittent faster who would just eat a bunch of crap during the time when I eat. No, I'm going to eat healthy during that time, because not eating healthy does not work for me. And Dr. Eric Berg is big on eating a lot of vegetables, eat more fat. Now, that was another one that was a hard sell. I was like, I don't know about this, Dr. Berg, because they say low fat is the best. But he said it satiates you. And so I was like, so I'm going to try this out. And I started noticing the more I ate fat and didn't limit it, the more I felt satisfied. Now, I don't eat a lot of fat still, because that was not working for me. But I don't hold back on it. So if it's something I am more cautious about carbs and sugars than I am about fat. And I do find that it does make me feel satisfied way more when I have some fat. So sometimes earlier on, when I was just like really struggling, I would always make sure I would scoop up a little bit of almond butter, eat a few, cashews, almonds, something like that, with especially my last meal. And I was just fine from that 5 o'clock, 5:30 until about, 5 o'clock in the morning. And so then I started doing the next thing I really had to do, because it took me a while to really accept I need to just not eat. I didn't like it initially. Now I like it more. I didn't like initially going so long without eating, even though most of it was while I was asleep, because I do mine at night into the morning. I did not do well with trying to extend, not eat, or eat late and then wait and go until noon. That does not work for me. So, yeah. I did not really want to give it up, but I did. And so that's another thing because my body was showing me proof, okay? Not just because Dr. Berg was saying do it or this man told me about it. I was actually getting results and starting to lose weight. Dropped 10 pounds pretty easily with that. And then I started doing the 2B mindset. And basically, the 2B mindset is you eat 3 meals a day and you're done. There's no, and Dr. Berg says this initially when you start off, do not eat a lot of, just eat 3 meals a day and then cut it off. Try to go 3 hours without eating, no snacking. And I'm like, really? But everyone says you're supposed to eat snack graze all day. Watch your blood sugar. No, when you're eating according to your hormones, the way you keep insulin down is you don't freaking eat. All right? Because insulin drives fat. Insulin is very destructive if it's too high. When it's doing what it's supposed to do, it does great because insulin helps the cells be able to get the energy or something. I'm not real sciencey with it yet, but when it's too much insulin, then it just wreaks havoc on the body, and it actually makes people get fatter. And it just, like some of the fatigue I was feeling, it was really more like an insulin issue. And it's just, life is different when we have too much insulin. When you have less insulin, you feel differently, you see the world differently. And so just this whole shift to me eating according to my hormones and really what is my body calling me to eat has been so much better than me eating the superior vegan diet, raw vegan. And even the carnivores are in this game, dogging everybody for eating the way that they eat. Even though I'm like, if you want to be a carnivore, be a carnivore. And when I say carnivore, I remember when we were doing raw, this one lady's husband was talking about eating raw meat. I had never heard of this before a day in my life. This was like 10 years, 15 years ago. And this man said no self-respecting carnivore in the animal kingdom is going to eat cooked meat. I'm like, there's a lot of people out there doing that. They drink animal blood. They're eating the organs and it's raw. It's like, hey. And they dog folks out for how they eat. So it's like everyone thinks what they have is superior, and I'm rejecting all of that. My thing is, it's about what is our body. For some of the vegans, if there are a few out there, veganism is working for them. And a lot of people start off really good in veganism and vegetarianism because we're giving up a lot of junk. But, it's very few people that actually are healthy on a vegan diet. And I know veganism for some people is not about the diet. But for those of us that are doing this because we want to be healthier, you have to know that these people, look at them. Look at how they look at how they operate. It shocks me that a lot of them give up their sport. And that's because, some of these people aren't doing it because of health. They're doing it because of animal activism. And that is honorable. I thank the vegans for helping me to be more aware and appreciative of the animals and saying that I'm not going to support an industry that treats animals this way. I'm going to find different ways to purchase meat that is raised in a humane way. It's not easy. It's not cheap. But I can do things too. I appreciate them for that, but that doesn't mean that they're healthy and that I'm going to be like them to protect the animals, because some of them have admitted in these ex-vegan videos that they were on the brink of death. Nothing that they did short of eat animal products brought them back to life. And once they got a taste of that life, it was no going back. But there is this guilt that I mentioned earlier that is all about, you just feel so guilty. And you keep thinking, they all talk about this in these ex-vegan videos. I'm just not doing it right. I haven't found the right thing for me. And in people who are still vegan and vegetarian and they haven't had a health issue, they look at the ones that fall and they're like, oh, they suck. They just weren't doing it right, you know? But if eating fewer carbs works for you, and eating very little fruit, because that blows people's mind when I tell people I don't need to eat fruit every day. Here lately, I've been hearing, because the people that are making the ex-vegan videos are carnivores. So I'm always like, that's a little suspect, but these are real ex-vegans, so. And not everybody who's on these videos, these ex-vegan videos, are carnivores. But anywho, you know, they talk about you don't have to eat carbs. And a lot of people are saying if you don't eat carbs the rest of your life, you probably will survive. If you don't eat animal products the rest of your life, you may not. And just listening to these people's stories, I'm beginning to think, I'm very much sold on it. Because a lot of the vegans who are well known, it is said some of them eat fish and meat and stuff like that because they're struggling, but they can't let their people know. Anywho, so yeah, this intermittent fasting, and I started doing 2B mindset, and so her approach to me is very what's the word I want to use? It's balanced, and that's what I think most people need is balance. Did you call me, Kamau? Oh. And so eat your 3 meals, and then kitchen closed, very balanced in terms of like, you know, in the morning, if you want a carb, you can have your carb for the breakfast, and then you're going to have less of a carb and less protein for lunch. And then for dinner, it's mostly vegetables with a little bit of protein. And then lunch is like half your plate is vegetables, half is carb and protein, and you know, very little dairy, I think. But she doesn't really seem opposed to anything. So I'm like, oh, I like that. That has been pivotal for me. 2B mindset, Zumba, Plate by Zumba, Dr. Berg, and helping me to bring more balance. And I'm still working to get off the rest of this weight. I have about, I'll say 20 pounds, just to round it up, about 20 more pounds to go. And what I've noticed, and I think it's because of either just my insulin issue was just so freaking out of whack because of sugar, that I am having to accept that this turnaround is not going to be fast like it was when I was younger. I'm 49 now. And it is not fast, maybe because of my own hormonal changes in my body. And it may not be fast because there's just so much damage. So I've had to go to ending I still start eating around 5 in the morning, but I end my eating around 2:30. That has been something hard for me to accept, but I notice when I end at 2:30, my body, I'm just not hungry. It's like my body, and I think Dr. Berg talks about this, my body has become efficient at realizing, okay, she's done around 2:30, and I'll go and teach 2 classes. And I'm not eating a lot. I'm not eating, I don't engorge myself or anything. It's just, I end around 2:30. One day a week, I go and teach at 5:15 to 7:30 p.m. 2 classes back to back. And I come home and I'll drink a little bit of decaf coffee with erythritol and a little bit of the creamer. I just said I'm getting back. I can't do too much half and half. Sometimes I do have to use a little powder creamer. And people say, hey, if you're intermittent fasting, you take anything in. Now, let me tell you about the intermittent fasters. They can be legalistic. if you drink anything with calories, you're breaking your fast. I'm like, oh my God, everybody is so freaking extreme. But I find I can do decaf coffee, erythritol, and even the powder creamer. Um, and it doesn't stop me from staying in ketosis is what it's called. But the weight loss has not started up again until I started with the 2:30, stop eating at 2:30. I have to stay on my vegetables. You know, the carnivores will tell you you don't have to eat any vegetables, but I cannot not eat vegetables. So guess what I'm going with my body? And you know, one of the carnivores had posted this woman, Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, I think is her name. And she is somebody else who I'm like, I like this woman because her thing is use veganism, a vegan diet, to help to cleanse your body. Sometimes you do need to eat a vegan diet. And then when your body says you need animal products, eat animal products. But we want to be eating the raw butter, the raw milk, which I'm not doing raw milk, but I'm for raw milk. I'm not going to do it because I hate milk. Okay. I'm not a milk drinker. I drank milk when I was 4, right when I had a stomach virus coming on, and I threw up, and I have not been a milk drinker since. But for those out there who want to do raw milk, you have a source of it, go for it. Eat animals raised who are pasture raised and humanely raised and all that kind of good stuff. And how we need the vegetables because they have, you know, all these different qualities, the different colors of the vegetables and all that kind of good stuff have good properties for our bodies. You know, I love the balanced approach to this thing. And I love everyone being encouraged to be intuitive and that we should be aware of the fact that the food industry does not care about us having health. As a matter of fact, the food industry profits off of us being addicted to, you know, food stuff that's in the store. And I hate that, but it's true. A lot of this stuff that's in the store, even though we can eat it and feel like, okay, I ate something, it's man-made and it's no good for us. And so it's a whole industry out there that it profits from us not really recognizing what it is and what it's doing to us. We should be aware of that. We should be making better choices. And so I love this woman that I found and have been just absorbing her videos. Another thing she talked about is the microbes. And I've heard Dr. Berg mention the microbes too. A lot of people talk about we have the gut and intestinal flora. Now, for my vegetarian and vegan days, got me into herbs. Actually, I got into herbs before that, not long before. That was probably my first step into natural healing and health. I had a PA that said, girl, you should not be broken down at 21. You should not be like this. I had acne and I was always constipated and just, I had no energy. She was like, go to see my herbalist. I go see a herbalist, started taking probiotics, all these herbs, everything. This is all before veganism and vegetarianism. And so she always taught us, her name was Frankie. Frankie said, all sickness and disease begins in the gut. And I've always wondered, is this really true? Because, you know, a lot of people will say some of it begins in our emotions. It begins in what we are storing in our bodies, you know, through our emotions and mental thoughts and stuff like that. It's probably a combination of all of them. But going back to this microbe thing, it's something that I think we really need to understand. It's like my whole new mission right now. And this gut and intestinal flora, it will determine what we eat. We think we're thinking with this, but this intestinal flora is called our second brain. And that's something else that we really and truly need to be aware of. I think that the greatest injury that has been done to us is not being taught how our bodies operate. Because these young people who are going into veganism and all that kind of good stuff and doing it for the sake of the animals or the environment, I'm like, well, do you not matter? And do you understand how your body works? If you understand how your body works, then you need to be eating according to that. Okay? And then get out and do something to help change the industry. Go to school, learn how to raise some animals, learn how to market, and learn how to educate people to get people to eat pasture raised animals, to set up, farms where we can get this raw milk and butter and all that kind of good stuff, because y'all gonna be dead and you ain't gonna be able to do nothing. And these people, a lot of these people, they talk about how veganism will make people have like psychosis. Y'all not gonna be able to do anything, young people. If any of y'all take the time to get this far into this video, you're going to do no good to the world if you're eating in a way that is causing you to be less than who and what you are. If you're not eating according to your body's wisdom, then you're not going to really be able to save any of the animals, okay? The animals living their best life out there for the most part. Maybe not the ones that's being raised for meat and all that, but the rest of them, they living their best life, doing them, eating each other up, animals eating animals while you're dying, all right? And that's the greatest injustice, I think, that has been done. And it's given me a whole new perspective. I hate that I had to come down this path, but I give thanks for it because I'm one of the ones that's been stuck on stupid and not listening to my body and not even realizing I'm not listening to my body, though. So maybe I'm not stuck on stupid, but promoting this or that is the best way to eat. So no, body wisdom. And so the listening to the ex-vegans has helped to heal me from feeling guilty for leaving it. Oh my God, I'm so grateful I'm no longer vegetarian or vegan. I am grateful to know that I have other options from, in terms of how to get meat that is humanely raised and all that kind of good stuff. That fat is amazing. It's so good for the body. And it's good for those of us that want to lose weight. I'm so grateful to have found intermittent fasting because probably the greatest gift I have from intermittent fasting is it's helped to heal me of my voracious sugar addiction as well as emotional eating problem that I've struggled with. I'm 49, as long as I can remember. I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that I watched the ex-vegan videos because it taught me when you don't listen to your body, then you put yourself in jeopardy. Because here lately, if I have not eaten enough food and it's after 2:30 because I've been on the go, because sometimes that happens. I'm on the go and I did not eat enough food, then I'm going to eat after 2:30. I don't care. I sure will. I try to eat as close to 2:30 as I can afterwards, and it hasn't negatively impacted my health or my chances of losing weight. And so when we say the control of the masses through the food, it's a number of ways for this to be done. The only people you should listen to are the ones that are teaching you how your body works. I'll tell you one last thing. In all these videos, I decided to watch one by Dr. Barnard, one of the doctors in the Plate by Zumba. Dr. Hyman is the one that I resonated with the most, Mark Hyman, who I think he's a vegetarian, but his biggest thing is get rid of sugar. So I think that's why I connect with him so much. Because sugar is actually associated with Alzheimer's. We wonder why we have so much Alzheimer's and dementia. Might be sugar. That was one of the worst issues I experienced when I was pre-diabetic, not having a good memory, and that's not who I am. It pissed me off that I could not remember stuff well. So Dr. Hyman has me sold on that. But Dr. Barnard is a big time vegan. And so I was listening to a video by a doctor who works with diabetics in particular, pre-diabetics and diabetics, I think is what it is. And just like Dr. Berg, her presentation was so sciencey, and it was based on how the body works. It was based on hormones and all that. So then I decide I'm going to listen to Dr. Barnard and see what he has to say, because I'm not about veganism, especially not guilt tripping people into veganism. And he talked about, initially he sounded pretty good. He's telling his story about how he got into eating the way that he eats. And then he starts talking about, look at the teeth of a human and then look at the teeth of an animal, like a carnivore. And I could not even finish watching the video. I was like, Dr. Barnard, you are a doctor. You're supposed to be providing something scientific. And the way he did it, it was like cute and funny and all that kind of good stuff. Totally what I used to believe. And I just said, I can't listen to you because you're not tuning me in a way that actually makes sense. I probably should go back and finish the video, but he was going on and on and on about what our teeth are shaped like, and that these are not the teeth of people who eat meat. And I'm like, I just can't do it. You're not tuning me into my own body. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just looking for science. I'm looking for science. I'm looking for people that's teaching me about how the hormones work, how my body works, all that kind of good stuff. I encourage you to do the same. If anybody makes you feel guilty, just laugh at them, or tries to make you feel guilty. Don't feel guilty if you're not eating a certain way. And, something else that was very healing for me on this journey is the doctors would say, or some of these doctors I would say, like Dr. Christensen with the adrenal fatigue reset diet, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that you're in these health conditions. And a lot of it is because nobody's taught you really how your body works in order to keep your body operating at an optimal level. They tell you why their diet is the best and why their diet is the best. And I give it to the carnivores. The carnivores seem to know how the body works. I'm not trying to be no carnivore. But when I listen to them, they seem to know how the body works. And that's how they eat. And I just encourage you all to do the same. Know how your body works. Test everything that they tell you and see, does it work for your body? Give it a chance. If it doesn't work, it's out the window. All right. I guess I will remake this video again when it's not so long and not so all over the place, but I needed to share this. So I'll just call it my vlog.